Well, good afternoon and welcome to The Big Show. The Big Show brought to you every single day by FanDuel Casino. FanDuel Casino. Get the app. It's the number one app for all of your betting needs and interests. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things you might want to bet on at some point tonight. We'll do that in a little bit. First of all, obviously the big topic of the day is still Aaron Rodgers. We'll get to him. Aaron Rodgers may or may not play, and we'll talk about that. The other thing we will talk about is the Steelers and their playoff chances going forward. So these are all things we'll get to. First up, it's kind of interesting. The topic that we've been talking about a lot is the secondary of this team and the fact that there's so many bodies and so many guys that are available. And, you know, it seems like when they throw them out there, they've actually performed reasonably well. One of the more interesting topics has been James Pierre. James Pierre, obviously, probably of all the Steelers' defensive players on Sunday, you know, you could make a real strong argument that he had the best day of them all. He played really well. And, you know, made some big plays and was a big reason why they were able to take Jamar Chase completely out of the equation and really stifle the Bengals in what they do. One would think that when you bring a guy in who plays and performs as well as he had, and he also is doing it in a position where the starter has not been very good, you would think a team that is interested in winning and getting to the playoffs and all the stuff that we keep hearing about the Steelers, that you would think, well, James Pierre probably should be the starter now, you know, until he proves he shouldn't be. But according to the head coach, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, Darius Slay is still banged up a little bit. You know, I haven't seen exactly where his status is yet. Still kind of early in the week. He's still listed as questionable, but he's getting better. He's questionable, but he's day-to-day. If he's available and he's able to play, Mike Tomlin says he will be back as the starting corner opposite Joey Porter Jr. I've heard a million theories over the last 24 hours as to why that is. You know, Mike Tomlin is enamored with name guys, veteran guys, players that, you know, sometimes he has a blind spot for players who maybe were good at one point that aren't quite as good as they used to be. I've heard theories that, well, they're paying Darius Slay a lot of money, so they got to put him in the lineup if he's able to go. I think all of that is nonsense. I really do. I don't know what the reasoning would be to put a guy who is clearly not good enough anymore. I mean, Darius Slay was a really good player for a long time, and he's old. And unfortunately, you know, some guys age better than others. You look at Jalen Ramsey, they had him at corner. He's 30, 31 years old. They had him at corner, and guess what? He was okay. You know, probably still the Steelers' best corner. But ever since they moved him to safety, which safeties generally don't have to be quite as fast as corners. They don't have to cover. They basically are covering areas and stepping up and stopping the run. Ever since they put Darius Slay, ever since they put Jalen Ramsey at safety, now all of a sudden he looks like a really good player again. Actually, he looks like a star. In many ways, he looks like a guy who, if you ask me the difference in the Steelers' defense over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's been the move from Jalen Ramsey from corner to safety. He has solidified that secondary because, and we found this out with Rod Woodson, who preserved his career for a few years by moving from corner to safety. And we've seen it with a number of other guys who are really good corners, and they're physical players, and they're good tacklers, and they're good up, putting their head up there against the run. When they lose a quarter of a step or a half a step, when they lose that, they can move to safety. You know, there's a number of corners who are just basically good cover guys that aren't great tacklers, who probably don't quite have the ability to make that transition. But Jalen Ramsey obviously is a guy who has, and quite frankly, watching the last 2 or 3 weeks, he looks like, to me, somebody that could play for the next 2 or 3 years and be really, really, really good player. But that shows you, because Jalen Ramsey was one of the best corners in the NFL probably, 3 or 4 years ago. And that goes to show you, that when you get a little bit older, you lose a half a step or a quarter of a step. There are some positions where you can still be a really good player, and then there are some where you probably aren't. And corner is probably the number one position where once you get a little bit too old and you get a little slow, you're not nearly as effective, especially if they're asking you to cover guys, and especially if you're going to be the number 2 corner and not, the slot corner. Sometimes, okay, you're the slot, you can go up against the tight ends, and they're not usually generally quite as fast, and it's a little bit different. Well, if you're asking Darius Slay to be the corner, and I always preface everything I say with this, I'm not a football expert from the standpoint of watching film. I'm not somebody who's watching all of the, the all 22 tape. I'm not somebody who is, intricate knowledge of exactly what the Steelers are asking guys to do, but I am smart enough to sit and watch and say, this guy can't run anymore. This guy can't play anymore. I mean, I'm of the opinion, I have seen nothing from Darius Slay, who, by the way, was a really good player, but he's 34 years old. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, I think, is 30, 31 years old, something like that. This guy's 3 years older than him. And unlike Jalen Ramsey, he doesn't have the skill set to move over to safety and be a good player. So to me, I look at the first, 7, 8 weeks of the season or whatever it is, and I'm not sure how anyone could watch film and think, boy, I want to put Darius Slay back into the lineup. Honestly. And especially when you have a guy like James Pierre, who's been around 6 years, so he obviously knows the defense like the back of his hand. He's been, he's been a guy who, when they've called on him, has been reliable. It could be a situation of where they're afraid James Pierre is best suited as a backup, and that the more you play him, the more exposed he will get. I don't know if I buy that. I think you put him out there until he proves that he cannot handle that position. And the bottom line is, if the bar where it's set is that he's got to be better than Darius Slay, that's not a real high bar at all. So to me, I really believe that, if you are really interested in winning, number one, and number two, if you really, have this thing where the standard is my standard and all that, I'll be honest with you. You have to go with the best player. Not the player that makes the most money, not the player that's got the bigger name, not the player that's a veteran because he's got more experience. All that stuff goes out the window. Who is the best player right now? And I got to be honest with you. James Pierre looks to me like a guy who can still cover receivers. Darius Slay does not. So to me, it really is a simple formula. Like, if I'm the coach, I'm basically going with the guy that is actually making plays. And I know there's always pressure, right? There's always pressure when you have a player that makes some money to say, well, maybe we need to get this guy in the game. Listen, you're 7 weeks from the playoffs. You're in a dogfight with the Ravens. You can't afford to make any decision that doesn't mean that isn't 100%. This is a football decision. Like when you make decisions sometimes, I understand all of the politics and all the things that go on behind the scenes that lead to certain players being put on a field at certain times. I understand all that. But I would tell you, to me, it seems very, very, very clear here that Darius Slay is not good enough anymore. And we've seen nothing that suggests he should be out there unless they, if he's healthy, obviously you dress him because he's better than whoever, your fourth and fifth guy is right now. But you've got a chance to put somebody out there who Sunday against one of the best passing offenses that you'll play against two of the best receivers in the NFL proved, hey, I can do the job. He made really good plays. I thought he, did a great job when he had a chance to cover Jamar Chase. I thought he did a great job when he was on T. Higgins. I thought when they were in zone, he showed up. He played really well. As I said, if I look at the game as a whole, sitting from my seat where I was sitting, I would tell you that I think for sure that James Pierre deserves another week to play to prove whether or not he should be in there. And again, if you're making decisions based on football, I don't think it's a hard decision at all. And like I said, 7 weeks from the playoffs, you're in a dogfight with the Ravens. You've got some really tough games coming up. You've got to make football decisions that have nothing to do with anything other than football. And so in this case, we've all watched Darius Slay. We've all seen enough. I know I've seen enough of him. I think he's a guy, you want to tell me that you've got some nickel or dime packages and you want to throw an extra defensive back out there, against some of those 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. Okay, he might be your guy. But even then, I mean, he gets cooked. Even when he's in the slot, he gets cooked. And, I just think that it's one of those situations right now where you've got to put the best player out there. And to me, Joey Porter Jr. isn't really a great choice as your number 1 corner. I think he's better cast as a number 2, but he's good enough. If you put him out there, and to me, the combination of him and James Pierre proved on Sunday that they can be effective, especially when you have Jalen Ramsey playing safety, and the addition of Cal Duggar back there. You've got a pretty good secondary right now. You put Darius Slay back in the lineup, I'm a lot less excited about it. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next couple of days play out. Obviously, if Darius Slay can't practice tomorrow and Friday, it makes it easy. But what if he's back as a full participant by Friday? Then what? It sounds like the head coach is going to put him back in the lineup. And I think that would be a big mistake. I do. I just feel like you've got to play your best players all the time. And that's why, whenever I hear Mike Tomlin talk about some of these guys, it's almost like he's looking at Darius Slay like he's 28 and not 34. Like when he was 28, 29, 30, yeah, he was really good. He's 34. He's not that good anymore. And that's probably a perfect segue to transition to the quarterback situation. You've got Aaron Rodgers with a broken left wrist or whatever it is, his left, something in his left arm, his left hand, his left wrist, whatever it is. They keep talking about how they have to find some sort of apparatus to put on his arm so they can protect his arm and so that he can, play on Sunday. I mean, again, one of the reasons that they're pushing so hard for him to play on Sunday is because, he's destroyed the Bears over his career. Okay, let's come back to earth. He played for the Packers, and the Packers were one of the best teams in football. And, they had a really, really good passing offense with some great receivers, and he was in his prime. And they were playing the Bears, who for the large part of his career stunk. So, yeah, he should have taken advantage of the Bears back then. That is so irrelevant to what Sunday is going to bring. It's not to say he won't necessarily play well against the Bears, but can we stop doing this thing where, ancient history matters? It's one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to the Steelers and discussions about the Steelers. The whole Mike Tomlin discussion. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl. I mean, he won a Super Bowl, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he won a Super Bowl, I think it was like maybe a month after Barack Obama was inaugurated his first time. And he ain't been the president for a hell of a long time. So, we're talking about 15, 16 years. Don't talk about how well Mike Tomlin, he's proven he can win a Super Bowl. Yeah, well, that was ancient history. The question is, can he win a playoff game? The last 8 seasons, the answer has been no. And that's the thing here when we're talking about Aaron Rodgers against the Bears. It's irrelevant. Unless you're telling me it's, Aaron Rodgers from 8 years ago and he's playing for the Packers and against the Bears, who are horrible. This Bears team, I don't know how good they are. Okay? I don't know how anyone could. They're 7-3, and if you look at who they beat, they don't have a single good win on their entire their 7 wins. Their best win was the Cowboys, and guess what? That was like in week 2 before the Cowboys made a whole bunch of changes personnel-wise and everything else. And the Cowboys are actually playing reasonably well now, but guess what? They still have a losing record. That's their best win. I guess if you want to tell me that, well, they beat the Vikings the other day. Yeah, they beat the Vikings with J.J. McCarthy playing quarterback. And they just barely beat them. And by the way, the Vikings have a losing record as well. They've got wins over teams like Washington. I mean, they've played basically 3 good teams, and they're 0-3 in those games. So maybe the Bears are good. Maybe they're better. Maybe Ben Johnson has been the quarterback whisperer that everyone thinks he is and has made Caleb Williams a better player. I don't know. I don't know how you can know. But my point is, looking at this Bears matchup, I'm completely 100% comfortable if the Steelers were to play with Mason Rudolph on Sunday and give Aaron Rodgers another week off. Just say, listen, we're going to give you a week off. It'd be like a bye week for him. And he's 42 years old. And he's going to play. I mean, the Steelers bye week, like week 4 or week 5 or something stupid like that. You're asking him to play 12 or 13 weeks in a row. To me, it makes no sense. You have a chance now to give him a break. Let Mason Rudolph play on Sunday. I'm not one of these people that's in the camp that's saying, well, Rudolph is better than, because he threw a couple of passes on Sunday. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you've got a quarterback who's 42, who's gotten hit a lot in the last 3 weeks, okay, who has a broken wrist. Give him a week off. Let him heal a little bit. When you get a little bit older, healing is not exactly something that comes like when you're 22, 23, you bounce back a lot quicker than when you're 42. It's going to be cold in Chicago on Sunday. I don't know. I say let Aaron Rodgers sit out for a week. Give him an extra week of rest. Give him practice off. Let him heal up. And if you do that, you're probably doing something that I don't know that the Steelers have ever really done in the Mike Tomlin era, which, you give them a lot of credit because every year they figure out a way to win more games than they lose, right? They never had a losing season thing. But if I'm Mike Tomlin, I want Aaron Rodgers healthy for the playoffs. At least healthier. I want him, to be a little bit fresher. So you give him an extra week off. I don't know. Who knows? To me, then he plays 6 weeks. Maybe you get lucky, you beat the Ravens, and you can take that last week of the season off, and you give him another week off. But I think that big picture-wise, you look at Aaron Rodgers, and he's not 100% healthy. And his quote today was something to the effect of, well, I need to be sure that I can protect myself. I don't know. That sounds like a quarterback that's going to be bailing out of plays. That sounds like a quarterback that's going to be, checking it down and throwing it away. And I don't think that's the approach that you want to take if you're the Steelers on Sunday. Mason Rudolph, look, he's not great. But he's proven that he can win games for you in a pinch. I mean, for all that you want to say about him and everything he's been through the Steelers, the fact of the matter is he started 13 games for the Steelers over his career. He's 8-4-1. So that tells me you can win with him, especially now that your defense is playing better and you're playing against, he's not a rookie, but he's essentially a rookie quarterback. I mean, I don't know. It seems real simple to me, but what do I know? I just know that I know if I'm the Steelers, I'm more interested in a fresh, at least fresher Aaron Rodgers down the stretch and a guy who has a whole 2 weeks to heal from his, let his wrist heal a little bit. Some of the pain goes away. You figure out the right fit for whatever it is you're going to put on there, a cast or whatever. Give him some opportunities to just sort of get comfortable, and then you put him back in. But the whole reason you brought Mason Rudolph back is so that you could have a competent backup quarterback, a guy who knows the offense. He's obviously a very smart guy. And quite frankly, as he's grown in his career, he looks a lot more comfortable in the pocket than he ever did when he was young. And, that was one of the big knocks on him, is that he, was a deer in the headlights. He's not that anymore. Sunday, listen, he didn't light the world on fire, but when he came in, he sparked the offense. And all of a sudden, guess what? The other part of it, when you play a guy like Mason Rudolph over Aaron Rodgers has now played what? The Steelers are 6-4, so he's played 9.5 games essentially. How many times has he thrown the ball further than 20 yards in 9.5 games? Here's what I'll tell you: Mason Rudolph would throw it more times in the first half on Sunday down the field than Rodgers has the entire season, because Rodgers can't throw it down the field like that anymore. So the reality is, you open up some things for your offense. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If you're really that concerned about it, you know what you can do? If you remember, Ben Roethlisberger got hurt. This is probably 10 years ago. He got hurt, came back. The first week back, they decided, I forget who was the starter. Was it Charlie Batch or whoever was the backup that was playing? And they brought Ben back, and they said next week he's going to be back fully, but this week we're bringing him back. He's healthy, but we want to give him at least a week here. They made him the backup in a game. And if you remember, the Steelers offense stunk the joint out for the first 2 quarters. They brought Ben into the game in the second half, and he saved the day. You could do that with Aaron Rodgers. Just make him your backup and let Mason Rudolph play. And if the game is going well and, it's close and Mason Rudolph isn't turning the ball over and making, bad plays and the offense is moving, then you just let Aaron Rodgers stand over there. So to me, I think that's where, if you're the Steelers, you've got to be starting to think about the playoff stretch. You're 6-4 now. You're still in first place, the AFC North. You got a couple of games against the Browns and the Dolphins that probably, you look at and you say you could probably win those, which means you probably get to 8 wins. You've got a little cushion. And, I just feel like, to me, it makes absolutely no sense when you've got a competent backup in Mason Rudolph. It makes no sense at all for the Steelers to go back and say, well, guess what? We're gonna go back to our 42-year-old quarterback who's got a bad arm, and he's also got some other areas where he's beat up a little bit because he's gotten hit a lot. And so that, to me, is where I would tell you their head should be looking ahead and not necessarily looking at, well, this 1 week we've got to play him and try and win the game. Well, you can probably win the game with Mason Rudolph. And if it looks like you can't, if you make him your backup, guess what? You can always bring him in the game if you have to. Now, FanDuel Casino, download the FanDuel app, and you can put it on your phone, obviously, on your computer. You can make bets from anywhere you want to and make bets on just about anything that's going on. Tonight, you got a pretty interesting game between the Heat and the Warriors, for instance. If you go to your FanDuel Casino app, the Heat are actually 10.5-point favorites over the Warriors. But the number that you probably would look at is the over-under, which is 232.5. And the reason I would say that is because the Heat are a team that actually play run-and-gun kind of basketball. They've decided we don't have a lot of real big guys. We've got some fast guys. We've got guys that can shoot and everything else. So at the end of the day, let's just run and gun and see what happens. So the pace of play has been really good for Heat games. They've scored a lot of points. So to me, I look at it and say, if Steph Curry comes out and he's actually playing well, the Warriors are a team that can score points. That 232.5 looks like an enticing number to me, just from the standpoint of, you have a chance maybe to get over that number and win your bet. So go to your FanDuel app, download it if you don't have it, sign yourself up, and you can make bets on many different things. You can also bet on players. You can bet props. You can bet the NHL. You can bet anything you want to bet. Go to your FanDuel app and make sure that you download it and get involved with the best betting app that there is on in the world of cyberspace. Now, a couple other things before we move on and get out of here. see that Shedeur Sanders is apparently going to make a start on Sunday. And I'm going to tell you, I'm rooting for the kid. Every people that follow me know I'm a huge Florida State fan. If I had to pick, a list of my top 3 or 4 favorite athletes of all time, Deion Sanders absolutely is on it, on that list. In fact, he's one of the prime reasons why I became a Florida State fan. But I don't understand how all these people who are out here already trying to make excuses for this kid and putting all this pressure on this kid and everything else, I don't understand how they think they're helping him. Like, why not let this kid write his own story? If he's good enough, he'll be good enough. He'll make plays. He'll show that he deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He'll be fine. If he's not good enough, he won't be good enough. And that's okay too. Lots of really, really great college quarterbacks never become good NFL quarterbacks. But the larger issue to me with the Browns is people seem to be more upset with the fact that a fifth round draft pick rookie guy, right, hasn't gotten his quote unquote opportunity. If I'm a Browns fan, that's not what would irritate me. Here's what would irritate me. We've got the best, or maybe the second best, at worst the third best defense in the league. That defense is real. Myles Garrett is out of his mind right now, sacking everybody. They're playing at a level. They're making they're in every single game because their defense is so good. I don't know. It's like maybe if you had Joe Flacco on your roster, you would actually be in the playoff hunt. Oh, wait a minute. You had him on your roster. And you traded him to the Bengals for no reason at all. It makes no sense that people are angry that Shedeur Sanders hasn't gotten his chance and they're 2-8. When, to me, if I'm a Browns fan, I would be angry that that Joe Flacco isn't the starting quarterback. Because I guarantee you, look, I think they're 2-8. I guarantee if I look through their games, I could come up with 3 games that Flacco would have been the difference. And if they were 5-5, they'd be right in the middle of the hunt of the playoffs. So to me, I mean, the most obnoxious thing is going to be, the social media and, then the national hot take people talking about the Browns game Sunday, no matter what happens. It's going to be silly. And it's like, this is a 2-8 team with a rookie quarterback. Who cares? But that's going to dominate, But to me, if you're a Browns fan, why are you angry? Why are you not angry that Joe Flacco is in Cincinnati? That's what should make you irritated, because you'd have a chance at the playoffs if you had him. Speaking of the Bengals, and I think that, I read today, Joe Burrow is back. He was a full participant today, and he's playing, and that's great. That's wonderful. But here's my question to the Bengals, okay? You have a $300 million quarterback or whatever you paid him. He's been injury prone mostly because your offensive line stinks. Your season is done, toast. If you won on Sunday against the Steelers, it'd be different. You didn't. You're done. Your problem isn't that you can't score points, because 2 weeks before you played the Steelers, you scored 42 and lost. And the week before that, you scored 38 and lost. Why exactly are you bringing Joe Burrow back? I mean, it makes no sense to me with 6 games left. The only thing that's going to happen, I'll predict it right now, is he's going to get hit a bunch of times behind that offensive line and probably be out for the season again. I just don't understand. He's a $300-some million quarterback. Protect him. Let him sit out the rest of the year. Let Joe Flacco get beat up. And then go out in the offseason and sign every offensive lineman that's available and draft them. Use all your picks on linemen too. And come up with people that can protect this guy. That's the Bengals. That's the Browns. Then there's the Ravens. Here's a couple things about the Ravens. Watching them last week, they played against the Browns. And I know the Browns have a great defense, so, you have to take that into account as well. But Lamar Jackson doesn't look like he's 100%. He doesn't look like the guy that takes off and runs and makes 20, 25, 30-yard runs anymore. And you take that element away from him, he's a hell of a lot less scary as a player back there, as a quarterback. You combine that with the fact that the Browns currently right now have 2 guards starting that are backups, and neither one of them is good enough, which is why they can't run the ball, and which is why, Lamar Jackson is taking a bunch of sacks and hits. I'm a lot less scared and nervous for the Steelers about the Ravens than I was, because I don't think that offense is nearly as dynamic as we thought it could be. The defense has gotten better from the beginning of the season, but they always have good defense. But guess what? The thing that was supposed to separate them from the Steelers is that offense, and it's not dynamic at all. So, yeah, this week they'll probably beat up the Jets. Yeah, okay, fine. But you know what? When they play the Steelers, I'm going to be very interested to see how Lamar Jackson handles the Steelers pass rush. And, if he's still not 100% because he has that knee injury that is still lingering, boy, if he can't run around, that offense is really kind of pedestrian. At any rate, tomorrow Adam and I will talk about the Steelers. We'll talk about Pitt. We'll talk about some things going on. Pitt, even though they got smoked this week against Notre Dame, believe it or not, everything is still ahead of them. And they've got a huge game Saturday at Georgia Tech. We'll talk about all that stuff tomorrow. And into the weekend, and of course, Adam and I will be on again after the Steeler game. We will be on to break it all down with the Steelers and the Bears. So until then, have a good night.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.